On the 500, we've lost Dale Earnhardt.
Question, once this crash happened, was how does that happen? How does one of the best drivers of all time die in such a seemingly ordinary crash? We've had some answers in the past week, learning about a HANDS device, a seatbelt that didn't hold, and a helmet that didn't protect the bottom of the face. But still, 1 week later, the feeling of shock is still there. Dale Earnhardt is gone.
The checkered flag was getting ready to wave. It was 3 or 4 cars in a tight pack, and they got together.
The 3 cars out. Big trouble. Big wreck behind them.
How about Dale? Is he okay?
Schrader has climbed out of his car. He and Earnhardt crashed together in turns 3 and 4.
This is undoubtedly one of the toughest announcements that I've ever personally had to make. But after the accident in turn 4 at the end of the Daytona 500, we've lost Dale Earnhardt.
We all did everything we could for him, but he had what I feel were life-ending type injuries at the time of impact, and really nothing could be done for him.
If you could, try to put into words what the loss will mean to the racing world.
Dale Earnhardt is, it's hard to say was, but was one of my best friends for many, many years. What he did in those final laps was what a father would do for a son. Ironically, that was his son right in front of him, Dale Earnhardt Jr., or what a brother would do for a brother. And Michael Waltrip was like the little brother that he didn't have.
He was my hero, too. I looked up to Dale Earnhardt for what he did on the racetrack, certainly the driver that he was.
This is a tough period in NASCAR's history. I can't think of any time it's been more tough.
I want to ask that everyone keep Sterling Marlin in your prayers. Sterling didn't do anything wrong. Sterling was simply racing. And when the checkered's waving, nobody's going to let off. And, you know, if they did, when they rubbed, I'm sure Sterling didn't think Dale would wreck.
It was definitely nothing intentional on my part, because Earnhardt's been beaten banged out here for years, and every Sunday, and for last bite next week.
Dale Earnhardt is the best and always will be. And one thing that we really have to remember is all the race fans that are suffering because of the loss of Dale Earnhardt.
The memorial vigil began at Dale Earnhardt Incorporated early on Sunday evening. Throughout the night, 100 or 200 people were here on site. They've come out to drop off flowers or balloons, a T-shirt, or even an old racing hat. They've come to say goodbye to their fallen hero.
You just can't put it into words what he meant. Just heroes aren't supposed to die.
WSOC FM 103.
I don't think it's set in yet.
You know, there's a lot of talk about who attracted people to the sport, but I have to tell you, the Intimidator was the originator.
A burial was held for Dale Earnhardt Wednesday at a small family-only service at an undisclosed location in North Carolina. There will be a memorial service for other family and friends on Thursday in Charlotte.
The length of the ceremony, very short, only about 25 minutes this afternoon, and what he thought, that was much the way Dale Earnhardt would have liked it. We do need to focus on safety. We do need to address some issues, but that can come tomorrow or next week or certainly not today.
What we have found in investigating Dale Earnhardt's car from the Sunday accident is that there was a broken left lap belt.
If his restraint system, his belts had held, he would have had a much better chance of survival.
We're going to put the number 3 in a moratorium for 1 year and not run the number 3 on anything. We will never run a number 3 black Goodwrench car again.
One of the things that this really teaches you the most about is how selfish you are about things like this. I mean, I miss my father, and I've cried for him, but out of my own selfish pity is the reason for those emotions, and I just try to maintain a good focus for the future and just remember that he's in a better place that we all want to be.
Well, and as we break, we go back to Dale Earnhardt in his own words back in 1994, back to the less sophisticated days of stock car racing.
The early years were pretty exciting, pretty scary, and pretty unbelievable at times. David and Ray Oliver owned the first car I drove. A little bit embarrassed that it was pink, but I had a good time driving it. Next, I drove an old '56 Ford that James Miller owned. During the winter, James and the guys built a 63 Falcon. Can you believe we won the first race we ran it?
More on Earnhardt coming up and the passion that made him the Intimidator.
I'm ready to go racing. I'm down in the garage area bouncing around, seeing everything, what's going on, and the guys are all pumped up. I'm ready to go racing. I tell you, it's a great day, and I was wondering if I'd ever get my name on that trophy when y'all built that thing, and it's going to be great to have this in my trophy case, but it's for Richard Childress and all the guys. Everybody worked so hard for this. There's too many people in my life I couldn't think of all right now.
Dale Earnhardt's appeal had few boundaries. An example at this weekend's Nissan Open, the golf tournament. Davis Love III wore a number 3 pin on his hat. Someone had put a black ribbon on the course's number 3 flag. After dozens of wins, millions of dollars, Earnhardt could have walked away years ago and still would have been one of the best ever. But listen to his passion, and you can hear why Earnhardt was battling to the very end last Sunday.
I can remember going to the races with my dad when I was 10, 12 years old, and that was what you was involved in. I really didn't play that much sports in school. I was always eager to get home and see what was going on with the shop, the race car, and couldn't wait to go to the next race. I'm a race car driver, and I've stayed competitive, and I started racing. My first thing in racing when I got in a race car was to want to race. I get psyched up for the 500. It's the first race of the year. We've tested, we've worked hard. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go racing. I'm down in the garage area bouncing around, seeing everything, what's going on, and the guys are all pumped up. I'm ready to go racing. It's not going to break my heart if I win 8 championships and never won the Daytona 500. 50th anniversary of NASCAR. Who would have believed I could win the Daytona 500 on the 50th anniversary of Daytona? Our 20th year here, we're going to win that championship. Anything you can have or do to be competitive more than the other guy and beat them is a part of your plan to beat them or your system to beat them. And if you can intimidate them and then they call you an intimidator, well, so be it.
Who or what intimidates Dale Earnhardt?
My wife. Don't you think a kid that's raced in Winston Cup, Bushman National Law, would know what to wear a sponsor's hat? Like, you know, Dad does, Dad?
I'm still learning.
His big brother carries first race, and he's got a sponsor's hat on.
I'm slow learner.
Slow learner. Slow learning. Well, you're quick on the track yesterday, but you need to please wear the sponsor's hat. You do look around and try to not go so fast. And you need to stop and say hi or say, call your mom and tell you you love her before you leave town or when you get back in town. And I still don't do that enough. Be close with your wife and kids and stuff like that. Because I'm going to tell you, I'm a lucky person. I've got a great wife, got great family, got great kids. Fortunate to have a lot of things and to be able to enjoy a lot of things. Probably a lot of people don't have or will never have. But it really doesn't matter what you have. As long as you got happiness and family and friends and church, and enjoy it and take advantage of that happiness. Don't let it slip away. Don't let it go by you. I hear drivers talk about we're going too fast and we're doing this and we're doing that. Well, maybe we are. Maybe we're not. Who's to say? I mean, how do you put a gauge on it? How do you slow? Do you want to race or don't you? I want to race.
Much more on Dale Earnhardt coming up, including a struggle to win his first Daytona 500. But first, Earnhardt talks about making the move from the small dirt tracks to the big time of the paved ovals.
After my dad passed away, I was fortunate to have a good friend, Gray London, who bought me my first asphalt car. It was a 65 Chevelle from Harry Gant. 1974 was my first asphalt race. And I've got to thank Harry Gant and Tommy Houston for teaching me the difference between dirt and asphalt. That was some experience.
Also ahead out, Earnhardt turned his name and his success into a marketing machine.
Any driver considering the folly of trying to replace Earnhardt would have to take a break first from counting the money Earnhardt helped provide.
Still to come on SportsCenter, he was the most visible and marketable man on the NASCAR circuit, and nobody sold the sport of racing the way the Intimidator could. Who's left to fill the void of the man in the number 3 car? SportsCenter's back in a bit.
2 decades he's waited for this moment, and it's here, and everybody gets a bath.
They call Richard Petty the king, but absolute power rested in Dale Earnhardt's hands. So did a lot of money. He was the first NASCAR driver to fully exploit his talent on the track and the merchandising of his name off of it. By one estimate, of the $1.2 billion of NASCAR merchandise that was sold last year, half of it was Dale Earnhardt related. And what's that nonsense about familiarity breeding contempt?
But hey, that's just my opinion.
It turns out the more well-known Earnhardt became, the more he was liked. A recent Harris Interactive poll showed 90% of the general population knew who Earnhardt was, and 90% of those had a favorable impression. The love him or hate him theory was apparently just part of his legend. Among sports fans reached by Harris Interactive, Earnhardt trailed only the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Yankees in popularity in every poll the last 2 years. Earnhardt was a franchise, and still is. There's no telling when or if sales of his merchandise will decline. Earnhardt's presence was good for business, everyone's business. The other drivers race for purses and conduct side deals now that weren't imaginable before Earnhardt's rise. For those left behind, the void created by Earnhardt's death is likely impossible to fill, and maybe it doesn't need to be filled, because any driver considering the folly of trying to replace Earnhardt would have to take a break first from counting the money Earnhardt helped provide.
Well, thank you, Kenny Mayne. With endorsements and winnings on the track, Earnhardt was still top 10 among athletes on the Forbes Celebrity 100. Tiger Woods and 3 fighters up there in the top 5 as well. Number 1, though, another driver, Michael Schumacher, who races in Formula 1. Now, NASCAR fans show considerable brand loyalty. What happens to those fans now with Earnhardt gone? The host of RPM Today joins us right now, Whit Watson. Whit?
Brian, thanks very much. Joined by Darren Ravel, the sports business writer for ESPN.com. And this is an issue that really, when you talk about Dale Earnhardt, what he did off the track, he revolutionized the marketing side of NASCAR, as Kenny Mayne touched on. You have to go back to Richard Petty to find a driver who could do that as well as Earnhardt did. Looking forward, is there anybody in NASCAR who can match the kind of marketing punch that Dale Earnhardt had?
Well, it might be his business partner, who Jeff Gordon was a business partner of Dale Earnhardt in many ventures. And Jeff Gordon, who can forget that incredible 1998 season where he wins the Winston Cup? It's his 3rd Winston Cup, and he's 27 years old. Now he's 29, a couple of bad seasons by his standards, but still, Jeff Gordon is definitely the man. Let's take a look at an ESPN sports poll, and here it is. Favorite NASCAR driver, Dale Earnhardt, 23.2%. Jeff Gordon, the same percentage. Then you have Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace, and Dale Jarrett. This was taken throughout the course of last year. Those are all Rusty veterans at 3, 4, and 5, so they could conceivably be out of the sport in another 6 to 8 years. So you definitely have that familiarity. He already had the fan base.
Interesting, too, of that list, 4 of the 5 former Winston Cup champions. It actually is a credit to Mark Martin how popular he is without the Winston Cup championship under his belt. So, Gordon, with the 3 championships, still a young man. If he is the most marketable driver right now, that's actually very good news for NASCAR because he certainly knows how to play the game.
Very, very good spokesman for NASCAR. He's the ideal guy. This guy goes on Regis and co-hosts with Regis. He does the Letterman-Leno circuit. He's great. He's got that great smile. He was named by People magazine as one of the 50 most beautiful people, and he really enjoys it. He's always smiling, so he is a great spokesman for the sport. People, when asked if they would choose their top athletes of who they would endorse, this is an ESPN sports poll again. Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, and Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt are on that list. Not on that list was any NHL player. So that's a major sport, and you have Jeff Gordon. And if he continues to win, winning is the key to endorsements. You have to be a winner out there. He will be a surefire bet, and he will move up that list.
Now, who else besides Jeff Gordon can bring the fans out, for better or for worse? I know there's one guy who can kind of polarize a crowd the way Earnhardt did.
Yes, Tony Stewart would definitely be that guy in terms of the polarization. You love to love him, but you also love to hate him, and he provides that storyline, turns that vanilla ice cream into the vanilla sundae on a Sunday.
Earnhardt, the Rookie of the Year in 1979, Winston Cup champion in '80. 20 years later, in 2000, he was 2nd in points. skills had not diminished whatsoever. For ESPN.com's Darren Ravel, I'm Whit Watson. RPM today at noon Eastern on ESPN2 and 6:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2 as well. Brian, back to you.
All right, Whit, thank you very much. For more, the long-form version of the news and tributes to Dale Earnhardt, Dale Earnhardt page on ESPN.com. Here on SportsCenter, Earnhardt again, in his own words, now joining up with Richard Childress.
Jim Goodrich came along in 1988, and with their support, we've won 4 Winston Cup championships in the past 5 years in our Chevy Luminas. Through it all, Richard Childress has given me the best crew, the best cars, and the best advice and friendship that any man could ask for.
How ironic that the track that claimed his life was the scene of Dale Earnhardt's greatest triumph.
20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt will come to the caution flag to win the Daytona 500.
Still to come on SportsCenter, Kenny Mayne takes a unique look at Dale Earnhardt's 20-year quest to capture NASCAR's big prize and how he dealt with getting the monkey off his back.
There's hurdles you get over and there's some you don't, and if you don't, you just keep trying till you do.
We'll have more from the Intimidator when we come back.
The most anticipated moment in the history of NASCAR racing. Dale Earnhardt rolling into victory lane in the Daytona 500.
Daytona had been so kind to Dale Earnhardt for so long. In his career, he had 34 wins there, more than twice as many as his closest competitor, Bobby Allison. The one win that eluded him for so long, though, was the Daytona 500 until February of 1998 on his 20th try. Did that win define his career? No, not hardly, but it certainly helped complete it.
In the 50 years of NASCAR, what would you want to accomplish if you was involved all that time? Well, sure, you'd want to win a championship, but you'd want to win the Daytona 500 too, wouldn't you? We've never won it, so we've been so close and so competitive there with Richard and the team, and it's just been an awesome kind of race to work toward and be a part of and be in, and to not ever win it is really, you know, it's a tough deal, but still, it's not the only deal in my life. Like I said, I mean, there's hurdles you get over and there's some you don't, and if you don't, you just keep trying till you do.
20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt will come to the caution flag to win the Daytona 500. Finally, the most anticipated moment in racing.
For Dale Earnhardt, his trip down pit road following his Daytona 500 win was sweet indeed. We can only imagine what flood of emotion filled his eyes of steel as the racing world paid tribute. After 19 bitter trips to Daytona for NASCAR's biggest race, this trip to victory lane had been paved with past heartbreak. It wasn't as if he didn't already know the way. He had visited stock car racing's most sacred spot, Daytona Speedway's victory lane, 30 times before. But those trips followed triumphs in events like the Bud Shootout, the International Race of Champions, or in the Busch Series. He was a permanent fixture for the Gatorade Twin 125 qualifying races, winning a remarkable 10 times in a row. He had even won in the summer heat, capturing 2 Pepsi 400s. But everyone knows, most of all Dale, that is not winning the Daytona 500. From his first Daytona 500 start in 1979, he always knew his way to the front. Leading laps in the Daytona 500 came natural to Dale, as did late race heartbreaks.
Earnhardt's car blows up. Earnhardt blows a tire in turn number 3. Derek Culp down to the inside. Terry Labonte second as Dale Earnhardt slides back into the 4th position. Off the corner, it's Derek Culp.
But here comes Terry Labonte. He looks to the inside. Derek Culp covers the spot. Earnhardt's not a factor here. Culp, hold off the challenge of Labonte. Derek Culp wins the Daytona 500 in a remarkable upset here at the World Center of Racing.
Year after year, he would fall short and always left to answer the tough questions.
It's the Daytona 500. I ain't supposed to win the damn thing, right?
Tenacity isn't a strong enough word to describe his will to win the Daytona 500, as he gave evidence to, even in the most extreme circumstances. When the victory finally came following another dominating performance, the emotions were as genuine as any ever witnessed in sport. The Intimidator had conquered his greatest rival and giving his fans a triumph that will never be forgotten.
Maybe this is what happens when we die. Everyone who ever cared about us reaches out to make one last contact, an expression to show we mattered. Dale Earnhardt had already experienced something like that upon winning the Daytona 500 in 1998. But just as funerals are really more for the people left behind, the moving gestures seen that day on Daytona's pit road was beneficial to those who lined up to honor Earnhardt. They can say they were there the day Dale Earnhardt won his 500. They can say they shared in it. That's what I'll say. His car drew us in like a magnet. The only release from his pull was to make actual contact, and each one who did came away more overjoyed than the last. It all played out in slow motion. The energy continued to build, then erupted. He'd done nothing to shake us off. We crowded for any angle to see him.
Down at victory lane, Dale Earnhardt is just climbed from his car. He's standing on the roof of the machine, showering champagne everywhere.
Dale didn't spray all the champagne that night.
I didn't wear my suit.
So the shower's out? Welcome back.
Now we were preparing for some kind of TV show, but the best theater was soaking in his presence, following the biggest moment of his racing life.
A couple comments, and then we'll show the highlight. Have you seen the highlight yet? I believe it.
No, I was in the race car.
Before we start, when we get into highlight, toward the end of it, your mic's going to be open. I'll just let you go. Just, Dale, what it was like, and you're just going to see.
1.5.
The pictures will be right there. Just describe what's happening. Where's your head?
He carried the room just as he'd carried the day, and he was so big we could steal part of him for ourselves. That makes us very fortunate now as we reach out to express the fact he mattered.
We're going go-kart right tonight. Do you want to go? I promised the guys I would
got a
ask.
big party.
You want us to go there?
No. Everybody else is, he's not.
It was his night, his party, but the thing is, even Dale Earnhardt was powerless to stop others from claiming that day as theirs. Celebrations like funerals or shared events.
And welcome, car fans. We are live from Daytona, and it's safe to say if Dale Earnhardt made out a short list of things to do upon winning his first Daytona 500, sitting in a chair was not on the list. Gentlemen, start your emotions. Dale, thanks for being on the show with Benny and with the doctor, Jerry Punch. What a day.
Well, much of that footage shot by Kenny Mayne himself on a camcorder, so thanks to him for that. As we have throughout this program, we hear from Dale Earnhardt himself, this time reflecting on his journey back at that 1994 tribute to him, this during his string of Winston Cup titles.
With the help of the good Lord and a lot of good people, I made the journey from the old dirt tracks around Kannapolis to the greatest super speedways in the world. And tonight, while you may be honoring me as your 7-time champion, I'm here to say it's me, Dale Earnhardt, who honors you and thanks you.
Coming up, we musically honor Dale Earnhardt. We also check into RPM today. We're back on SportsCenter after this.
And for the first time in his NASCAR Winston Cup career, Dale Earnhardt wins on a road course.
I felt like that he took my career and said, okay, you've really done a bad job of running this deal. I'm going to take over from here on out. And he was in charge for one race, and I won.
The Intimidator. I remember my first year down at IROC in Daytona, and he was standing by one of the trucks, and he's got his glasses on, and he's got his arms crossed, and he's just watching everybody walk by and stuff, and I went up and stood next to him, and oh, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm just looking at everybody.
We did this old dirt track. We run go-karts on, me and my sister Kelly and Tony Jr. and everybody. We'd get all these yard carts. Dad get on there on a four-wheeler, a Honda four-wheeler. Man, he'd fly out, run all those. He run on two wheels in the corners and stuff. Had a lot of fun with it. So that's probably that's the early competition that we had. And then he cheated. He had more horsepower and you know, had them big old tires on that four-wheeler. So of course he won. And you know, ever since then it's who sells most souvenirs, who signs the most autographs, who's got the most appearances. And I'm winning all these battles. He just don't want to admit it.
I can think of a Make-A-Wish kid just the other day that wanted to meet Dale Earnhardt at the IROC luncheon, and that was his dream. And he was there from Orlando and got to meet his buddy Dale Earnhardt, and they became quick friends. And just to see the smile on that young man's face and how much Dale enjoyed it too. So I could go on and on, but what a terrific person.
I can remember doing a football game years ago out in Texas one night, and my wife Joni was 8 months pregnant with our daughter, and he called the house. He happened to turn the ESP on and saw me doing a football game, and he calls the house where we were living up in the mountains and says, Joni, said, I know Doc's doing a game, and it's snowing like crazy outside, and you're on top of the mountain. He probably took the four-wheel drive to the airport, right? She said, oh, yeah, but I'm okay. I'm still a month away from delivering. I'm fine, Dale. Thanks for calling anyway. He said, no. He said, I've already got 2 guys with a flatbed truck on the way up the mountain with a four-wheel drive, and one of the guys is going to stay there till Doc gets back in case you need anything. And that's the kind of guy Dale Earnhardt was.
I was traveling the country. A policeman came up and said, I'm an Earnhardt man. I'm going to miss him. I mean, the man was a larger-than-life figure in American sport.
I felt like that he took my career and said, okay, you've really done a bad job of running this deal. I'm going to take over from here on out. And he was in charge for one race, and I won.
The Intimidator. I remember my first year down at IROC in Daytona, and he was standing by one of the trucks, and he's got his glasses on, and he's got his arms crossed, and he's just watching everybody walk by and stuff. And I went up and stood next to him, and oh, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm just looking at everybody.
We did this old dirt track. We run go-karts on, me and my sister Kelly and Tony Jr. and everybody. We'd get all these yard carts. Dad get on there on a four-wheeler, a Honda four-wheeler. Man, he'd fly out, run all those. He run on 2 wheels in the corners and stuff. Had a lot of fun with it. So that's probably that's the early competition that we had. And then he cheated. He had more horsepower and you know, had them big old tires on that four-wheeler. So of course he won. And you know, ever since then it's who sells most souvenirs, who signs the most autographs, who's got the most appearances. And I'm winning all these battles. He just don't want to admit it.
I can think of a Make-A-Wish kid just the other day that wanted to meet Dale Earnhardt at the IROC luncheon, and that was his dream. And he was there from Orlando and got to meet his buddy Dale Earnhardt, and they became quick friends. And just to see the smile on that young man's face and how much Dale enjoyed it too. So I could go on and on, but what a terrific person.
I can remember doing a football game years ago out in Texas one night, and my wife Joni was 8 months pregnant with our daughter, and he called the house. He happened to turn the ESP on and saw me doing a football game, and he calls the house where we were living up in the mountains and says, Joni, said, I know Doc's doing a game, and it's snowing like crazy outside, and you're on top of the mountain. He probably took the four-wheel drive to the airport, right? She said, oh, yeah, but I'm okay. I'm still a month away from delivering. I'm fine, Dale. Thanks for calling anyway. He said, no. He said, I've already got 2 guys with a flatbed truck on the way up the mountain with a four-wheel drive, and one of the guys is going to stay there till Doc gets back in case you need anything. And that's the kind of guy Dale Earnhardt was.
I was traveling the country. A policeman came up and said, I'm an Earnhardt man. I'm going to miss him. I mean, the man was a larger-than-life figure in American sport. He's a down-to-earth, straightforward, plain-spoken fella who was a star.
Of course, we will have more on Dale Earnhardt. And remember, they are racing again at Rockingham. We'll have that for you on RPM tonight. Tonight at 6:30 Eastern Time on ESPN2. We'll also check in with Supercross action in Atlanta and the season opener. It's all tonight, 6:30 Eastern Time. See it on ESPN2.
So often when a powerful figure dies in his prime, his legend grows. That will undoubtedly happen with Dale Earnhardt. It's happening already, but legendary status already bestowed upon him.
By his fans and by his fellow drivers as well. A sign in front of a store on the way to Rockingham this weekend really says it all. It says, Dale will remember you always.